Well, today I'm drinking out of Powell Chiropractic coffee cup. Some of the best chiropractors on the planet. Great clients. Love those guys. Powell Chiropractic, Canton, Ohio. Jim and Chip and company. So, thinking about Powell's while I'm drinking coffee.
Fantastic.
I should put that right over the machine.
No.
I'll just, dump that right in the sliders.
Well, I already broke a glass yesterday. Don't need to add to the problems, right?
Well, so what are we listening to today?
It's a surprise.
All
You
right,
ready?
hit me.
All right.
I got it.
What is it?
It's Yes, and it's a Big Generator.
Very good.
I love that. I just love that little break.
The snare is I got a pop and a snap to it at the same time.
Innocence, no answer to your breaking heart. Hit the situation sometimes falls apart. Then in this ecstasy, your charms are frozen.
Yeah, I love this album. It's not as doesn't have as much in there. I guess others feel like as 90125, but man, it's a great album. There's Rhythm of Love, a couple others that are just
So yeah, this one's Rhythm of Love. This one, here's. Yeah, that's good.
this Big Generator.
Mhm.
Well, so great album. Thanks for teeing that up. What are we talking about today?
You brought a book.
Well, I did.
I brought a newspaper.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, they still make these. See that?
No,
That's
I
a
love that.
newspaper.
Epic Times. Yeah, that's a big. I try. One of the things I try to do on the weekend, and I'm about 25%
Yeah.
on it. I try to read the whole first section of the Epic Times, which is just world events, news, articles on stuff going on. It's not the second and third sections are opinion and like life, tradition, kind of squashy stuff, I guess.
Mind and body.
Yeah, mind and body,
It
there you
gets
go.
kind of
Yeah.
Eastern-ish, but
And then there's like a kid thing or family thing or tradition thing or something like that. And I don't as much read those, but I really do love reading the first section. And like I said, in my mind, I'm like, man, this weekend I'm going to read that whole thing. And maybe, 1 for 4 is probably generous. I might do it 1 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
But I love it. And I will at least scan through it, Man, there's great articles in there. And you take that and you pair that up with something like In Primis. And it's just some good, old-fashioned, solid writing. There's a ton of opinion in there, but they don't apologize. They just kind of like, hey, this is what we think's going on.
Right.
This is how we see it. And it's refreshing. I mean, it's how I see the world too. And I think to me, that's one of the things we forget about when we go, hey, honest reporting. It's like, well, is there such a thing? You know what I'm saying? I mean, just everybody's got their angle.
Right.
And I just think it's better to just say, well, here's my angle, and I'm going to give you the news from my angle. And okay. What's your angle again? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So now I can use my spidey sense to decide if it's BS or not. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, I mean, look, you go into a courtroom and you got two apparently really smart lawyers arguing the exact opposite effects from the same set of facts. You know what I mean? And one's trying really hard to cover up certain things and amplify certain things, and the other one's doing the exact opposite. And there's only one set of facts, you know. And at the end of the day, people massage facts. It's you know, justice and truth and all that is, when it comes down to the law, it's like, well, it's kind of malleable. I mean, you know, there's only one set of truth, and that's mine, right? I mean, or our own,
Right.
you know, one's own, I guess. And that maybe is a little, what's the word for that? Pessimistic? I don't know if that's pessimistic or not, but
It's something.
it's, well, it's, to me, it's pragmatic, maybe. I don't know. Well, so yeah, so I'm glad you brought that. I love it. Have you read any of that lately?
Yeah, this one, I got through the disturbing article about the organ transplant industry in China.
Is that yeah?
Yeah, that's
I think there's a new one that just came out.
that's what I was saying this morning. I'm like, I haven't gotten the new one yet.
Yeah, I just got it yesterday.
Yeah, so hopefully it'll be in the mail today.
It was coming on Saturdays. It was weird, and then something happened, and now it's not.
It's our postal service.
Postal Service, really? I mean, those guys are exemplary. I mean, we have a really nice mail lady. So anyway, I'm glad you're reading that. So this one of the things we're going to be doing, big announcement, is the Lodestone Book Club. So in this Lodestone Book Club, we are going to go through a book. I mean, go figure, right? Really, Coach? Yeah, an actual book. And some of you ought to read it, I'm thinking. We know, and a side note. Can I do a side note tangent? Who was it? I think it was Mark Twain that said, maybe you could look this up since you're tapping away over there.
Sure.
If you don't read, you are the same as someone who is illiterate. If you won't read,
That sounds like something.
you are just as good off as the illiterate or something like that. Which is like, you might as well be illiterate if you're not going to read books. You have the same, like, you've just clapped a ceiling on your life, which is, I ain't going to read nothing, you know? And it's like, well, there's your problem. You're an idiot, you know? I mean,
One of Mark Twain's quotes. This is like a offshoot of that one. If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you read the newspaper, you're misinformed.
right, that's so great.
That's awesome.
Well, and that's
So-
to my point,
Right,
right?
right.
It's like, well, so at least get misinformed from somebody that you agree with.
Right.
Oh, man. All right, that's a good quote. If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read the newspaper, you're misinformed. I like that. He was great.
I'm still trying
What else you got?
trying to figure out who actually said this quote. But I'm not finding it.
Well, so while you're looking up that
Right.
quote
Keep going.
here, I was going to say, I see when I look at my clients, and this is, I won't use any names, but you know who you are if you're listening, watching and listening. But I will say that objectively, when I'm going to say active clients, 20 companies. And these folks have, I'm going to say 10 to generally 200 employees, somewhere in there. That size company, right? And I work with leadership teams, and the folks that are doing well, mysteriously happen to also be the folks that are reading and learning actively. Like they're actively pursuing others' insights that have been, written about and that sort of thing. And they're taking to heart what they're reading. Like they're literally trying to get some new information from somebody that knows what they're talking about, presumably, and put it into practice, or at least put it kind of. I'd say they put it in their pipe and smoke it. Like they just are like, well, I don't know what I think about this, but I'm thinking about it, And when I look across former, current clients, that correlates, where their growth, success, happiness, results, let's just call it results, whether it's money or leadership or culture, whatever, correlates with their intentionality at learning and reading and growing. And I mean, reaching out to others, to especially through not so much academic, but just it's almost like they're polishing and sharpening themselves. And the ones that don't are just, they're rusty and dull. I mean, and I don't mean that as an indictment, they just aren't nearly as effective. Now, I don't know if it's totally because they don't or won't read, but it sure is an interesting correlation.
So we're not sure positively if Mark Twain said that. He didn't write it in anything.
Okay. But it's credited.
It's often
Generally.
credited to Mark Twain.
Okay.
And the quote is, "The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read."
There you go. Well, but what about women? I mean, Mark Twain was a hateful SOB, I guess. Well, anyway, we're just poking fun a little bit at PC here. Love women, love men. And so I really love one woman in that way. Not really, actually. No, practically, factually.
You're just digging a deeper
Yeah.
hole.
Hey,
At
when you
this
start
point,
digging,
you might just want to
just quit digging.
yeah, just
Okay.
just move on.
So yeah. So anyway, Lodestone Book Club. The way this is going to work is we're going to talk about the book that's coming up in the Lodestone Book Club, and then we'll take some subsequent episodes and talk about the kind of the first section or so. And we'll give you what section we're going to be working on next. And we'll have a guest in here to discuss the whole book. So we'll try to have one guest that we bring back multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And that one guest, we will talk about one book with the one guest and work our way through the book section at a time. This is a big book, so this is going to take some episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to summarize a bit.
So what we got here, this is, and by the way, Brandon Kenny with TTX has agreed to go through this book with me. This is Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin. Team of Rivals. It is apparently it's about Lincoln, and it's really about his cabinet leading up to the war etc. So this book, I think, is the subject material for the Daniel Day-Lewis movie, Lincoln. Is it just called Lincoln?
I think so. Yeah.
And have you seen that? I haven't either. I really like Daniel Day-Lewis as an actor, but I digress. So what we're going to be doing then is Brandon will be coming on to a future episode, and we're going to be talking about, so if you want to keep up with us, we're going to be talking about the first 2 chapters. So at that rate, like, it'll take us a year and a half.
It's going to take a long time. You might want to.
Maybe we'll do.
You know that movie came out 10 years ago,
Did it? Wow.
and we still haven't seen it.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I need to put that on my list.
Yeah.
It's still growing.
I haven't seen it either, but so for the next so when we do the next episode on Team of Rivals, it will be over the first 2 chapters, and then we'll go from there. So and Brandon will join us, Brandon Kenny, and we will see how this book hits us. So that's the Lodestone Book Club, and if you have some ideas of what we ought to be going through in the future, send them in, I guess. Get a hold of Shane.
Yeah.
This one here, and we're going to put the books up on these shelves somewhere as we get through them, too, and we'll have a library. As Brian used to say, go down to the library. So, anyway, that's the book we're going to be reading. I'm really excited about it. I've already read the introduction, and it's really interesting. I can't believe how Lincoln impacted our country. Many people think that Lincoln was our most important president, or it's a toss-up between Washington and Lincoln, and it's for good reason. And the guy basically, he was when he won the election for president, when he won the primary, the last thing he had done politically, I was 12 years before, he was a congressman for 1 term. And that was it. That was his entire successful political career.
He wasn't like a
Politician. He had been
a career politician.
Well, he'd been living in Springfield, Illinois for 25 years. And during part of that time, he had been a congressman. And he had, I think he had done some other like local stuff, but nothing like mayor nothing political. So it's crazy how he cobbled together what he did and then became the president that he did. So I'm really looking forward to
he wasn't qualified.
Not in an experiential sense.
That's what we have
you
today,
know?
though.
Yeah.
You can't run for this. You're not qualified.
Well, and it's interesting. I mean, there's arguments on both sides of it. I personally think, we've seen I personally think, and I think you do too, that, I was freaked out that we elected President Trump, and just like Glenn Beck, I was like, I don't know about this. And then I was like, man, I love this guy. And now there are things about him, just like everybody else.
Please
that
don't
I'm just
tweet.
like, dude,
That's a
stop.
whole other conversation.
Yeah,
But
there are ways that he was a moron about a lot of things.
yeah.
But when you just talk about when you talk about getting things done, quote unquote, and again, this comes down to whatever side of the aisle you're on, I suppose. But he hadn't run anything. He hadn't politically run anything.
Right.
So anyway, just lately I read Art of the Deal.
Yeah.
Listened to it on audio, and it was the guy who read it. It was great. I was shocked. My son read it and said I ought to listen to it, read it, and I was really surprised at how much I liked it and how you can see in that book how that guy made a good president. At least, of course, I agree with him on a lot of things, and so But if I didn't agree with him, he still would have been a good president. He just would have done things I wish he hadn't have done.
Right.
But that's our system. Like, I don't want to stop having good presidents. I mean, I want to have good Democrat presidents and good Republican presidents. And if those two parties stop being effective, which I think they kind of have, I would like to see two other parties, right? And have them be effective, but on the opposite sides of of philosophy.
The party of low rent.
What if you had a party of cheap phones? Okay, like, I mean, we have them. My son just went out and got a $32 phone, smartphone.
I didn't even know they were that cheap.
I mean, there's some way somebody's making more than $32 on it, but, and he's like, oh, why would I get a whatever, iPhone or whatever? I personally like the iPhones because I like how they work, but
Well, plus for work.
for work. They work. Yeah. I mean, they're
So we're
very
using
they're
it for
productive.
our business.
Right.
Yeah.
They're very productive. They don't cause me much problem, and they bring me lots of. I can be productive, and the phone disappears in my work. Which ultimately, as far as the phone goes, it's this. It's just talking on it. But I try to not do other stuff on the phone much. But anyway, the point is, like, on the political party side, is like, well, if you just let them be. Somebody came up with a cheap phone, and folks go buy it, and we don't have to have a political party to
Right.
do it.
Right.
But hey, that's I mean, that's just me. But and John Locke and Adam Smith and a number of others. But hey, there's a lot of really smart economists that disagree with those guys. Okay, fine. I just don't like them. Speaking of economists, I've been trying to read again. The Road to Serfdom by F.A. Hayek.
I've never read that one.
So he is the kind of the, I would say, libertarian. He's Austrian. He's an Austrian economist. He's the guy. So Milton Friedman was like, this guy's the bomb, basically. He kind of was he's the philosophical center for conservative financial policy, I suppose. And he finds his roots in Adam Smith. Anyway, just interesting little tidbit out there for those of you that want to, it's a hard read. It's like very philosophical and theoretical, I suppose.
Yeah, he was an economist and philosopher.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was written in the 40s.
So I'm looking forward to this book, Team of Rivals, Doris Kearns Goodwin. Now, one of the things we're going to try to do in the future is once we get through the book, we're going to try really hard to get the author in here and interview them.
Right.
Not on the darn phone either.
No, we can't. No.
Try to get them in here.
Yeah.
We'll figure out what kind of coffee they like.
I'm sure that'll be the clincher to get him here.
You think? Yeah.
It should be.
Yeah. I mean,
Coffee's important.
hey, there's something I love, a little saying of mine. If you hang around Lodestone much, if you're a client of mine or whatever, there's not a lot that coffee doesn't help. I mean, generally, when I'm trying to fix a problem, the first thing I do is pour a good cup of coffee. Like, well, let's start with coffee and then see where we go.
Back in the day, college days,
Yeah.
had to write a paper.
Yeah.
First thing I would do, big pot of coffee.
Yep.
Had no idea what I was going to write on.
Yep.
Start drinking coffee and
Figured out.
always fixed it.
Yep.
Every time.
Well, yeah. So that's coming up. We got some other books, tons of books out there we're going to be working on, but that's coming up. So hopefully you'll participate out there in listener land. So I want to talk about a tool today.
Which one?
I don't know. Have you? So as you've been sitting in on sessions, what have you seen be a big impact lately?
Toss up probably between This would be really specific types of rocks. The M3M. It's really good.
M3M.
I should pull up Trellis and think of things.
Well, one thing that came up lately a few times, and it came up on the phone. I was driving in here, and it came up on the phone with three. And you know, I talk to my clients often on the phone, as well as see them monthly or so. But something that's been really strikingly, glaringly obvious to me, but not to the leadership teams, is what it means to own a particular role, and especially owning a role that includes your job is to lead, manage, and hold people accountable.
Yeah.
And there is so much lack of clarity on leadership teams about that. And so when I say leadership team, so let's say you've got a business and you have 5 employees. Or let's say you've got so you're the leadership team, like you're wearing, get work, do work, and get paid. You're that guy or gal, right? Where you're like, okay, I'm going to go out and find clients, and I'm going to make sure we do the work for the clients, and then I'm going to make sure it's all happening at a reasonable margin, that we can pay the bills and have some money left over. So, and I was on the phone with a fellow yesterday, and he was lamenting some issues in the business, which is like, man, it just seems like I'm not making any money. Why do you think that's happening? Well, I'm like, well, buddy, we gotta go.
Did you say little buddy?
Not little buddy.
Okay.
I said buddy.
All right.
Yeah, no, little buddy.
I didn't mean to distract
a
you there.
parenting deal, but I mean, although I have done that with clients in the past, like little buddy.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, so I'm like, buddy, you gotta find out what they want. This comes from The Road Less Stupid. I don't remember the author of that.
I remember we talked about that a few months ago.
The Road Less Stupid, and it's a great kind of heavy hitting. It's like what's the word I'm looking for? He just kind of like slaps you a bunch, like, you big dummy. What was it that Fred Sanford would say? Lamont, you big dummy.
You big dummy.
Big dummy. So anyway, in The Road Less Stupid, he says, look, it's simple. Find out what they want, go and get it, and give it to them for less than you paid.
Right.
Or for more than you paid, actually.
Right.
Do it for less, have some money left over. It's not complicated. I know. Now, businesses get really complicated, okay? I'm not trying to diss the transaction here, but we forget. Like, we get so caught up in the weeds and stuck in the weeds that we lose sight of the basic transaction. Go and get it. Find out what they want. That's a key. I mean, there's got to be demand. You got to get the thing, whatever it is. Hey, they want blah, 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 but it doesn't exist. Okay. Well, so you're going to invent it? Or are you going to find it? But you got to, you see a hole in the marketplace. You go and get it, and you give it to them for more than it costs you to get it. All right? That's it. And the guy's like, man. Like, buddy, how long you been doing this? 20 years. Yeah, okay. So, and he has, I'm not going to say his name. So if you're watching, relax. And I will not. I'm going to try to not say anybody's name on the podcast.
Not
because
do that.
They should fire me at that point. Yeah, I will self-fire at that point. Okay.
That's not cool.
Yeah. Shane, I give you permission to help me self-fire at that point. But anyway.
I could just edit it out of the tape.
There you go. That might work.
Probably easier than
we should have what do they call that? What do they call that on radio when you have a
Well,
a delay,
yeah,
a gap, a delay.
they-
There's some anyway.
yeah,
So if somebody actually says
I would,
the cuss word,
yeah.
I guess we could do a little bleep sounds, but you don't know I'm about to say it, so
Like this. That was really loud.
yeah, that was like toxic.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
still too
so
loud.
loud.
Holy cow. That is crazy.
Well, so this fella's like, oh man, I'm like, so dude, so there's only a couple options here if you're struggling financially, and we get so caught up in rabbit trails mentally that we lose sight of the big basics. And I know it sounds elementary, like, well, that's dumb, but people do it all the time. I'm floored at how often wicked smart people do this. And I can't, and I think this part of, I need a burp button. I don't- okay, well, I mean, it's too late. But I need a burp button. So anyway,
A burp remote.
and I'm telling you, the smarter the quote. I mean, how am I gonna say this? The more letters that are after the person's name. So, hi, my name's. I'm gonna make up a name, Bob Smith.
That was very original.
I don't think I have any clients named Bob Smith. I gotta think about it.
About Gunter.
Yeah, okay,
or Sven.
Gunter. Hi, my name's Gunter Kierkegaard Svirgen. Anyway, something Norse. Sven Sverengard. There we go.
There, there.
So, hi, my name is Sven Sverengard, LSP, LPA, CPA,
MD.
MD. Oh, like, oh, great. Okay, so you're a wicked smart blockhead. I mean, I'm just, they are the hardest people to get to see basic things. All right. And so, I'm gonna make a gross, generalization. The blue collar folks that I'm working with that have high school or whatever, they're like, hey, you smart? I'm like, well, I went to high school. I mean, they don't care. They don't like talk about education in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Those folks, when I show them something, they're like, man, okay. And then they go do it, generally. The folks with a bunch of letters after their name, I have to fight them for years to get them to see something like, listen, go find what they want out there in the world. Go and get it and give it to them for less than, for more than what you paid. So essentially you have something left over,
Right.
money-wise.
And that's called.
And have fun doing it, too.
Right.
And be like, man, this is great. All right, culture, super simple. Are you having fun doing this? No. Okay. Nobody else is either. And they don't want to work with
But there's
you.
must be some really difficult explanation of why this is not working.
Well, and the guys with all letters, guys and gals with all letters, spend all their days and all their money miserably looking. And like, well, it's not that hard. I mean, it's not easy to fix, but it's not complicated. It's so anyway, with him, with this particular client I was on the phone with, well, we only got a couple places to look. Either we're not bringing in enough money. Okay, so when we went out and got it and gave it to them, quote unquote, so wow, they have this need. I'll go supply that need. Well, we didn't charge him enough. That's one major spot.
Right.
Okay. Well, when we went out and got it, we paid too much for it. Okay, so it's like now, so you could take that, and I mean, we're talking, when we're saying broad brush, this is a bucket. I mean, this isn't even a brush. We're just going, just dumping junk on the thing. No brush involved here. This is a hose. All right. So it's way more broad brush. Anyway, so, all right. So when we go out and get it, so you can break that into kind of maybe, I'm going to make this up, but, well, we got some people. All right. So we got too many people, or we pay them too much, or they're not doing enough in the allotted period of time. You call that efficiency, right?
Right.
We're like, all right, we're paying Sven. Let's give me
Gus.
Gus. All right, we're paying Gus. We're paying Gus here a bucket of gold, and he's rowing. Okay, that might be too much, And if we're gonna pay Gus a bucket of gold, we need like him to invent like the next compass or something, or a steam powered engine for our Viking ship or something,
Right.
where it's a game changer. But if he's just gonna turn the crank and crank out like foot pounds, that's really valuable at a certain level. But we gotta mash up the value proposition. All right, so we go out and get it, and we may be paying too much for that. And so it could be around labor. Labor is a huge deal, right? So labor efficiency, or the folks we did it for, maybe they haven't paid us yet. So it could be cash flow as far as AR and stuff. It could be, hey, the money came in, but the cost of our overhead is eating it somewhere. So we're paying too much for our trucks. We're paying too much for rent. We're paying too much for the phone bill. Maybe. It could be there. So that's it. I mean, okay. And then we got some hard stuff. So let's say we're buying some material and then mixing it with some labor and producing a finished result. Okay, we might be overpaying for material, for some sort of raw material. Maybe supply chain, whatever you want to call that. Whether it's we're remodeling bathrooms or we're producing, microchips, it doesn't matter. There's some raw materials involved. The supply chain is a big deal.
It is.
So, but this was my, I don't know, prescription. And this is something I see happen all the freaking time. It's like, well, buddy, you need to take some time and think about it productively.
We don't know how to think, though.
Yeah, like he's like, well, I'm so busy. Like, oh, right. So the thinking, and this is Einstein here.
Yeah.
The thinking that got you into this will not get you out of it. I've heard, they ascribe the insanity thing, right? Doing the same thing over and over. Well, apparently that's not Einstein. That gets misapplied to Einstein. But what Einstein actually did say, whether he said the other thing or not, I don't know. But what he did say is the thinking that got you here is not the thinking that'll get you out of it. You got to change the way you think. Pull up that Bob Dylan song.
Oh,
Gotta change my way of thinking.
sure.
Man, what a great song. And when I'm doing sessions, sometimes that song is rolling through my head. We got to pull that up in the session. That's from Slow Train Coming, I think.
Make myself a difference
Oh.
in a room.
Let me start over.
Change my way of thinking.
There you go.
Make myself a difference in a room.
I mean, that's it. You got to think differently. The thinking that got you here is not going to get you out. You're in this hole. You're stuck. All right. Well, let's do something different.
Right.
And that, as a coach, that's just really my job, is to be like, well, let's do something different, buddy. And they're like, what should I do? I'm making fun right now.
You are. Yeah.
But it's like, well, I don't know. It's not my business. I mean, but I would look here or here or here or here. I'm not going to tell you what to do, because I don't own the results. And it's actually not wise for somebody to give you advice, but then not own the results.
Right.
That's,
Right.
that's hiring an employee or something, or a partner or something like that, right? So anyway, so I'm like, buddy, you need to go do some thinking. And here's how. Of course, we got, tools.
Yeah, you teach people how to
Yeah.
process some of that stuff,
Yes.
which I think a lot of a lot of people need help with that.
Yeah,
'Cause
Roger that.
Who teaches you how to think? We
Supposed
don't.
to learn that at school.
No, we don't.
I mean,
It doesn't happen.
did you learn how to think at school?
No,
Did anybody at school help you?
no.
Are you sure? We were talking about somebody the other day that helped.
Well, okay, no. There was a few. There was a handful of teachers that,
Yes.
like, I had a math teacher.
We went to the same
eighth-
school. For
eighth grade.
listeners who are going like, I'm confused. We went to Tappan Elementary School.
Yeah, and then
Ravenna, Ohio.
so we did have good teachers at Tappan. Your dad was not my teacher though, so I'm just
Well, my dad taught 5th grade, and he was a excellent 5th grade teacher.
yeah. My sister had him for 5th grade. and
Did she?
She yeah.
Did one of our buddies, I think Eric, didn't Eric have him?
I don't remember. Probably.
And I don't think Ian was in my class with Brian in Mrs. Carlin's
Mrs.
class,
Carlin,
the other
who
5th
was
grade.
a wonderful
She
teacher.
was a wonderful teacher.
And Mrs. Houston for 6th grade. She was a
Wonderful.
wonderful teacher.
Yep. Yep.
But then from there on out, it was like hit
Yeah.
and miss. Like
Yeah. Very
I had
spotty.
1 or 2 teachers in each grade that were just fantastic.
Yeah.
But I didn't really learn how to write papers well until I got to Kent State.
I don't think I ever learned how. to
My
write.
music history professor, with most of our time we spent writing papers. And I went up to him after class one day. I'm like, I need help because I'm not good at writing. And he spent extra time with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's great.
And it wasn't a writing class. It was a
Yeah.
history class.
Well, so as far as thinking, I mean, and this is where I would get stuck in school, for example, is I couldn't convert thinking to producing. And I mean producing in a general sense, like executing, getting it done, get her done, right? And that's where I think that's actually with clients, they have a problem. They actually have this disability. It's an ability that creates a disability. And that ability is they're hard workers. They are unstoppable.
Well, that's how they got where they're at.
That's right. They're hard. They're like machines. They're freight trains. They're try and stop me. It's like, well, actually, you need to stop. You need to stop, like pull off to the side of the road here, buddy. And you need to take a day or half a day and just think and go, now, what am I doing wrong here? And that's where at school, they didn't teach us how to do that. It was output based, like, hey, spit out this paper or whatever,
Right.
or grade or test or read the thing or do the assignment. But so this fellow that I've been telling you about, this client that I had a conversation with yesterday, I gave him some homework to do, which is, all right, in the center of the paper, so I'll show you this. See if I can do this. I can. Here we go.
You can.
I shocked myself.
Oh, I shocked myself.
Okay, so this little deal, super simple. I just call this the brain drain. Very, very simple tool. And sometimes the simple stuff is the best stuff. And if you got a problem you need to think about, you got some sort of dilemma, some sort of conundrum. So for him, this is my, if I could write here, my cash flow sucks. And you just take and write that in a sheet of paper. I got here, I use this kind of thing. Super simple, one pager, and just write that in the middle in a little box. And then you just kind of go, huh. So I had told him, hey, catch and write out here on the side, what are the elements of your cash flow? Like, well, we sell some stuff and we spend money on some stuff. We spend some money here. We spend some money here, and just write down the big things. Here's where our work comes from, and then the 5 or 6 different ways we spend money. Okay, and then you start thinking about it. You're literally looking at this, and the value here. Let me turn around. Is to just, instead of writing, we're thinking. Okay, the goal is not the goal is not about writing here. The goal is not to kind of like, well, let's write down the answer. And that's why we do this non-linear like this. So when you write something on a sheet of paper and you got all these lines, you're like, well, you know,
You want to make an outline.
you want to make an outline.
or bullet points, and
Yeah.
and you're trying to organize it before you actually know what you're thinking about.
That's right. And what's going on in your head is you're going, where should I put this line? What is this one? Is this A? Is this two?
Yeah,
is this
you're not-
little A or big A? Right? You're trying to, your brain is trying hard to organize your thoughts.
Which you don't have yet.
Right. It's like
They're
you
not
gotta
there yet.
change the way you're thinking. So what we're doing on this exercise, and what you know, I do this all the time, and I get my clients to do it. Some of them is to catch this in the middle, and then just think and forget about the lines, forget about the organization, and this usually lands home when I say like this, like, you remember when you're 14 or whatever, teenager, and you're on the phone with your girlfriend, or who you hope it would be your girlfriend,
Maybe someday.
or someday I'm going to have a girlfriend. So you're on the phone though,
You dial 867-5309.
dude. Yeah, who was that? What band was that?
I don't remember.
I can't. You gotta pull it up.
Oh, yeah, okay. You can keep checking.
So anyway, you get the phone, and you dial it up.
It was Tommy Two-Tone.
Tommy Two-Tone.
could I forget that?
Man, that's great.
Yeah. Okay, you got to admit, this is pretty cool.
That's a great lick.
So, you know, we had dial phones.
Right.
So this is a commitment.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna dial somebody.
And there's no area code, right? They're in your area. Right?
They don't know who's calling,
That's right. That's right.
because even when caller ID was invented in our lifetime, which is kind of weird.
That's right. That was back when phone sales actually worked. Because you'd have to pick up the phone to ring, you'd have to pick it up.
Right.
Man, that might be grandma or, the neighbor calling saying your car's on fire. Yeah. So,
There you go.
alright, so you're
So you
dial that number, and let's say it's your Jenny.
and it's not 9, it's 9.
Right,
just-
Tommy.
yeah.
Two-tone. He says 9 with two syllable nines.
9,
right?
3
Nine.
syllables. 9.
So you dial her up, and you're talking on the phone, and you start doodling. Did you ever do that when you're on the phone with somebody back in the day, and you doodle? I could probably find. Let's see. Yeah.
I think I actually was holding the phone.
Well, yeah, but
I don't remember
while you're holding your
doodling.
phone, you're doodling. Well, so here's I
On
mean,
your
this is-
phone book.
Yeah, right. Yeah, or whatever was
Yeah.
sitting around there. And you could see stuff all around where the phone was that had doodles all over it. At least in my house, it did. So here's an example. This is very non-linear. There's just a lot of stuff written down there. And none of it is like, it's all connected. But this is just me thinking. And I was thinking about, I was in a hearing. I was in a mediation hearing with some attorneys and trying to.
That's a story for another time.
Yeah, story for another time.
Right.
And I was really mad. I was pissed off. Talking about court or law or whatever.
Right.
And so right in the middle, I'm like, now my emotions are not an essential part of this process.
Probably not helpful
Not helpful at
at
all.
all. Right.
Yep. I have a buddy. We have a buddy, Kurt Dreger.
Kurt's a great person.
He's a great guy. And he says to me one time, this was like, 20 years ago.
Oh, this is a good quote.
And he's like, and he's a policeman. He's a cop, man in blue. Back to blue. All right, love the guy. Anyway, he says, Mark, we have this saying, when we're out on patrol, and it's if it feels good, don't say it. And I'm like, oh,
That's great advice.
you know,
It's
and it's like,
really
man, how many times have you opened your mouth and like, there, you know? And it was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever said.
and there's repercussions.
And then there it goes. There's a great Bible verse talks about that. You know, it's like, I think it's in James. It's like, hey, this forest
Yes.
fire, see how it's burning everything down? That came from this little match, which was your mouth.
Right. Your mouth.
You know, and it's like, oh, well, oh, so I should shut up? Yeah, you probably should. So anyway, all that to say, I'm in this thing, and I'm just right in the middle of this little. You can see this little box. There's a little box, which is like, oh my gosh, I need to make sure. And I'm taking notes. So this is how I take notes. And it says, keep your emotions in check. Yeah. So I'm like, man, I better keep my emotions in check. And there's an attorney and another attorney and this judge guy, mediator guy, and there's a lot at stake in the outcome of this thing we were doing. And so as things are happening, I'm just writing it. And I'm not trying to like make a record per se of what happened, although I'm trying to collect my thoughts about it. And as somebody would say something and this number would come out and this statement would come out and I would see a guy do a thing and I'd like say, man, this guy's an idiot, you know, or whatever. I just would make observations and write them down. And they don't belong anywhere. They belong just gathered around this thing.
There's no organization there.
That's all it is. And so you're just taking
ideas.
that and you're naming the bucket that you're going to throw your thoughts in or that you're thinking about. So cash flow sucks. And then you just, when you have a thought, you write it down. Now
then-
that's the key.
And
Right?
what happens after you write it down?
Oh, well, so
Like
as
your
you're-
body. What-
Right. So what's happening mentally? Yeah, I would say, I don't know if neurologically is the right word, but
close.
But as far
there's-
as the pathways in your brain,
Right.
okay. What's happening is you think the thought, and then you look at the paper. All right, so right there, 2 or 3 things are happening in your brain with different zones of your brain. So you think the thought, and you're thinking, man, my cash flow sucks. And so let's say you go, why does my cash flow suck? And right then, you need to go, just take your pen and write, why? Because you just thought it. So all you're doing is you're draining out your thoughts onto paper. You're not trying to organize them or say, why should I write this? Just write it. And so I write why. And then you stare at that why. And I'll just kind of go, and if I'm stuck, I just kind of go, and I just start doodling.
Put a little arrow there.
And what happens
or
when you're
circle.
doodling is your brain starts working behind the scenes better than in front of the scenes. So anyway, a couple things happen. And so you write down why, and your eyeballs.
There's
Unless-
a pair. Well, you know,
Unless you're, like a pirate or whatever.
right. Art.
Okay. So your eyeballs see your hand, like your hand when your brain tells your hand to write down the thought you just had. Now you've connected a bunch of other zones of your brain, and then you write it, and your eye sees that, and it comes back into your brain through a completely different channel, and now you've actually had complete thinking. Like you've
There's like the
actually
circuit.
thought about it. Yeah.
This thing has like
And I don't know, I'm gonna make this up, but there's like 10 parts of your brain that gets involved.
probably more, but
Yeah.
we don't. I don't know.
But
Not
what
in
you're
our
doing is you're having a complete thought, which is really helpful.
But then you like why, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I bought $40,000 of inventory,
Yeah.
and I didn't need to do that today.
Yeah. So one of these, you could put here, well, I'm paying some people, I'm buying some stuff, I'm renting some stuff, equipment and buildings and phone systems
Software.
and software. Right. It's just OpEx. It's
Yeah,
overhead.
all that
it's
kind of stuff.
It's just, it's the fixed cost and variable cost. And we can get down into, you can go to QuickBooks hell. and
Let's not talk about
and
that.
let's not go there. Yeah. So anyway, you just kind of, we want to, I'm telling you, look, first of all, let me just say, when somebody's trying to solve these problems and they go QuickBooks, like, all right,
Run.
you run. We're done here. Like, you're not going to find it in QuickBooks. Now,
And that's because QuickBooks is looking into the past.
sure. Yes. Roger that. So QuickBooks is telling the story about what happened 3 months
60,
ago,
60, 90 days ago.
30 days. If you're good at QuickBooks,
30 days.
30 days ago. And so if you're sitting here going, I need to figure out what to do, so I'm going to look at 30 days ago. Like, well, dude, stop. You need to look at what's happening right now. Now, QuickBooks should be telling the story accurately. Whether it is or isn't, I don't know. Who
So
knows?
It's like driving backwards on the highway using your rear view mirror. To,
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, you're driving forward. And think about this. You're driving forwards and stuff's spitting out the back, right? White lines and yellow lines, all kinds of scenery. And you can, I mean, if you're on a straight stretch of road, I mean, theoretically, if you have a wide enough road, let's say the road was not 10 feet wide, the lane. Let's say it was 50 feet wide. And there's a line here and a line there. And you could go around corners and stuff. And if you could react quick enough, if you saw the line out your rearview mirror, it's just a terrible idea. And we go, yeah, that's dumb. But that's how we run our businesses. We have all these tools and softwares, machines that are spitting out information. And that happens after we make decisions and pull levers. Okay? The problem with the cash flow is you're making bad decisions. Okay? Now, that's right. And you find out about it 90 days later. And so you need to go, 90 days ago, I did some dumb stuff. Right. Okay. So I suppose you can look around at QuickBooks a little bit for that. Assuming it got in there correctly.
well, hopefully.
Right. And all this hopefully. So, but that's one place you can go, I may have a bunch of mistakes in my software. Okay. You could put that and so you just, as you think about it, you write it down. QuickBooks, or whatever.
My sales guy
Yeah.
quit.
Yeah. So, okay. So this came up in our conversation. So you could say people. Well, let's say that's one of the, my cash flow sucks. Well, where am I going to look?
You can drill down a little bit on that.
Yeah. Where else could you look? Stuff. I'm trying to say stuff here. You could say my overhead, my building. So you got materials that we're supplying, labor. Well, but I would even here you could go. Well, what about people? Well, labor, talent. Like, are they good at it? Like, it's not just, hey, I got a guy that fogs a mirror. Great. That's a level up in this marketplace, right? Okay.
But you could be selling the wrong thing.
Yeah. So look at let's talk about baseball. And a lot of times I pull this in and with a client. I'm like, well, okay, you got some people. Let's say you own a baseball team. I'm like, hey, what's wrong with my baseball team? We keep losing. Okay, well, we got 25 guys on the field, all right, in the dugout. Which 25? I mean, it comes down to like, are they any good? And then you can do. So you might just jot down talent. And you might jot down here, attitude, right, which is culture. And you might jot down. You could be really good at what you do, but still be really inefficient. And then you could be really good at what you do and really efficient, and be a jerk. Okay, that might cost you. That's costing you some money. There's a bunch of stats around this. So anyway, you just catch that and you catch that. So, and I'm not using any names here. Okay, so anyway, we have this. He's like, oh my gosh, I had this guy that was working for me, and I'm still putting out some of his fires. I'm like, okay.
Is he gone now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, just take a minute and summarize for me how much? Like,
Like how many fires?
yeah. So you have a fire, and when you
Or how big it was? Or
when you're putting out a fire as a business owner, the water is dollar bills. The water that's flowing through the hose, you're like, there goes another million, you know? And the stat, and I don't remember where I got this. It might have been, I think it might have been The Excellence Dividend. He quotes it in there. Tom Peters, great book,
Yeah.
by the way.
lots of good stuff in there.
But it's a bad hire, and what is a bad hire? All right, well, I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at talk about what a bad hire is, but a bad hire, quote unquote, costs, and this is cash, right? Costs the business 10 times what you pay them. So if you have for sake of good math, easy math. Now, let me back up. So you might say to yourself, I don't believe that. Oh, okay. You don't read much, do you? I mean, it's just like, well, go read it. You know, look it up from some smarty pants that have figured this out. And whether you believe it or not, okay. But there's a lot of evidence out there around this. So anyway.
There's versions of that quote too. Some say 30% of the annual salary. On top of that, it takes about 6 months to break even on a new hire. So there's
It's normal.
right.
Yeah, and this
There's
is
all this other stuff
normal
that's wrapped into that quote.
Yeah. So I think I might have seen it in the Gallup thing. They have a bunch of stuff around engagement, et cetera. But anyway, a bad hire costs you 10 times. Let's say it's 5 times. All right. So
It's still something.
I'm like, how much you pay this guy? 100. Okay.
Times what?
So let's just be super conservative and say 5 times, not 10, which is, 10 is the.
It's
And
just,
if they're a manager, he was a manager. 14 times. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, buddy.
yeah, 'cause-
And he started doing the math in his head.
right.
I'm like, well, where are you at? And I'm like, right, I'm already at 200,000. Okay.
So we're at a quarter of
found it.
a quarter of a million.
$250,000.
Think about it that way. It's
Yeah.
like 200,000.
Yeah. And this is somebody's out and you're.
My
so-
eye was twitching.
Yeah.
And it's not
Well,
even my business.
So you got a guy, a person, a manager, and you're placing them with your client. All right. What did it cost you to get that client? A bunch. Okay. Now you're putting this guy with the client, and you're putting the guy and 5 employees with the client. So now we have all of these areas that are going to get funked by this guy.
It's not just that client.
His ooze
It's-
is going to get on everything.
Yeah. All the
right.
people he was working with
That's
in the
right.
company.
And so that's why we call it 10 times because, well, now you just screwed up this client. Okay, there goes your reputation. All right.
My culture is going out the window.
So now you're losing good folks. So culture, this is a double, so it's a double whammy. So when you have a bad manager, your good people leave. That's expensive. And your bad people stay. That's expensive.
Oof.
And both happen at the same time. That's why it's 14 times what you pay them.
Yeah.
Also, how much did you pay to get that client? You got your marketing cost. You got if you're the visionary and let's say it's a 20-person company, and the person that's leading the charge, he's out doing sales generally.
A lot.
Well, you're expensive. Like you're a big cost. I mean, you're a big investment for the business. All right, so we take that at cost, and so now we have just wasted all your efforts by putting this manager with this client. And then, as the person running the business, if you factor what does it cost to keep fuel in your tank? Well, now you got to babysit this guy. All right, so now we have a cost of management. And then we have some broken equipment. We have broken stuff, right? And then reputation. How do you measure that? And then there's a cost that we actually gave the guy.
Right.
Plus, there's an efficiency cost. Like, well, he should have been pumping it out at 100%, and we were at 27. Okay, well, there's that cost. So you just stack all that up and you're like, dang. So hire the managers carefully and leaders carefully. It's a huge deal. So anyway, getting back to the brain drain. It's like, wow. So you got to just start thinking about that stuff and go, well, it might be here, it might be here, it might be here. And then you see your thoughts. And that helps you to go, oh my gosh, I think it might be here.
Because more thoughts will start popping
Cool.
up as
Guess what? At that point, turn the page. Just turn the page and forget about the last page. You go, oh, I think it's people. Okay. So using cash flow sucks. You just put people in the middle of your sheet and go, where am I losing money on people? Or wasting money or not getting enough money, whatever. Just start writing. Just start grabbing your thoughts. But the key is think and then put the thought down on paper and then look at your thought and do some more thinking. I was on my ride in this morning, I'm listening to a book, Barking Up the Wrong Tree.
Yep.
I don't remember. I can't think the guy's name's Barkey. I think his last name's Barkey.
Because I was looking that up the other day.
Yeah, something Barkey. Kevin Barkey, Steve Barkey. I don't know. Something like that.
That's kind of ironic.
Yeah. So he quoted a stat that 75%, and I don't know where he got this, and I may be misremembering the quote, but it was something like 75% of our good ideas happen in the shower.
It's Eric Barker.
It's Barker? It's not Barkey? Eric Barker. All right. I was in the ballpark.
Yeah, but that's still funny.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I wonder if that's how I came up with the
yeah.
title.
I'm guessing. So anyway, so I regularly think up new kind of like approaches and ideas and so forth in the shower. And I have a big whiteboard at the house. And I have
In your shower.
Well, no, I got to tell you, I seriously thought about 10 times how to put a whiteboard in my shower.
They make markers for kids. Like out of soap or something. You can just
That's not one of their good ideas. I mean, like, hey, go ahead and write on the wall. Like, the thing about kids is like, no, we want to prevent that. You can, like imagine a poor little kid, a 3-year-old kid. I thought I could write on the wall. Like, it's like, no, you can't. Like, let's not give them a wall they can write on because they don't know the difference between that one and this one. You know, the goal is, and I have at this point, you know, I have 5 kids that are all much older, and I have 5 grandkids.
right. Who are now
All of my grandkids, well, except for one, are toddlers now. They all are mobile. They're all bipeds at this point. You know, when they get from a quadruped to a biped,
things change.
Things change.
Yeah, it escalates quickly.
and their thumbs can grab markers really well and other implements of destruction.
That end up in electronics.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Do you remember when Caleb, my oldest, he put a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the VCR?
That's awesome.
So back when he was young, VCRs were the thing.
Hey, imagine being that age and like, this is a great idea.
Oh man,
this
look, it fits right in there.
It's like I can store my sandwich here.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm like, what's wrong with my VCR? Holy crap. So anyway, there's the brain drain. And I got to tell you, I have found understanding. Well, I would say, let me say it this way. I have had so many epiphanies in this process of just, and you know, our brains, our person is profound. A human is profound. The structure. You know, whether you think it evolved or was placed or profoundly breathed, okay. I mean, I'm not talking about that. It's just we are fabulously constructed. And when we function well, we come up with just crazy good stuff when we're in our zone. And I got to tell you, this tool has helped, this process has helped me solve some huge relationship issues, huge head trash issues, huge money issues, huge client issues, you know, you name it. It's come out of this kind of work.
You do variations of this all the
yeah.
time with
All the time.
almost every client.
Yep. I think I have 5 variations of this.
Yeah.
around some specific stuff. But anyway, so I don't know why we were. Oh, we're talking about clients not figuring stuff out. Like, well, you need to think differently. You're not seeing the truth here.
And one of your hacks with this is defining the opposite, which
Yes.
is that's
huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
that is very helpful.
So I used this the other day with a client. Well, let me talk about that for a second.
Right. I think it's really good. It's really helpful because it's easier to see
Yeah. So
when you're stuck. You'll have to move that. I should play
So
some
if you,
music while you're doing that.
if you start, let's say you're stuck here and you're going to saying to yourself, well, I don't know why my cash flow sucks. I don't know what to do now. I put that in the middle of paper, coach, like you said, coach, but now I'm stuck, coach. So
I have no ideas.
right. Well, so here's how you bust it loose. Let me get a different color.
Yeah, I was going to say
Blue.
different colors are very helpful.
Very helpful.
your
So
brain.
when I'm facilitating this, we'll change colors at this point. Anyway, so now you just do this little exercise. All right. So we know what this looks like. Or you say, my cash flow sucks. What do you mean? Well, I don't have any money. Or there's a lot coming in, but I don't know where it is.
That's usually a
Right?
common one.
Yeah. So I
I
can't.
have all this. I have all this revenue,
Yeah.
and there's nothing left.
Yeah. So how
Where-
many?
Where did it go?
Yeah.
I don't know where it went.
So I have a client. We had this conversation with the leadership team. Probably day 2. It was our second session together. I'm like, guys, where you at on revenue? Oh, 6 million. All right, cool. This is 25 employees. It's perfect. It's a great number. 6 million. Wonderful. Did you still have any of it? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, so 6 million came in the door. Where'd it go? I mean, dude, it was, and they had this number.
Crickets.
They're like, well, we think we had an $800,000 profit. And I'm like, well, you think? I mean, really? Like, you sound like you're not sure. I mean, sometimes this is so fun. They're just like, bing, bing,
You're poking at them.
you know, and they're looking at me and going, oh, yeah, we don't really know where it is. I mean, that came out of the owner's mouth. Yeah, I don't know where it is.
It's like
Wait, okay, so, and I said, no, and I restated this.
yeah.
Okay, $6 million, 800,000 profit, and you don't know where it is? That's what you're saying? Well, we know where some of it is. Like, okay, so do you guys want to fix that? I mean, yeah, coach, we do. Okay, so, all right. So we go, all right, cash flow sucks. So that's one example of cash flow sucking. Like, I don't know where it is. It came in. Now there's this great statement. And in golf, there's this statement. You drive for show and you putt for dough. Right? It's like, I could drive the ball 350 yards.
Well,
Okay,
good
well,
for
why-
you.
Why? But it took you 7 shots to get in the hole. I mean, like,
So that's what, a double bogey or
that's
what
on a par 5, that would be a double bogey.
I'm
right.
throwing
And,
out words. I don't know what
Sure.
they mean.
So
I'm not a
bogey
golfer.
a bogey is 1 over par.
All right.
A double bogey would be 2 over par. Triple bogey is like you need to go home. I mean,
Don't give up your day job.
that's right. Yeah. This is a golf outing and you're half drunk, or something.
Well, then that would explain it.
It may. Some people play better the more they drink.
They're more relaxed and they can.
guess, yeah.
All right.
So anyway, so here's the tool. Getting back to the tool.
We get
Rabbit
distracted
trail.
quite
Yeah.
easily.
So this is called. So all we're gonna do is we're just gonna define the opposite. All right. So you just go DTO, right?
DTO.
So when I'm facilitating this, I'll take a different color and I'll write.
And it doesn't matter what color it is.
Doesn't matter what color. But now if you're sitting around doing this on a sheet of paper, you're not going to use a different color. But on a whiteboard with a team, this is fabulous.
Right.
This is a great process, brain drain with DTO, with any team. So let's say you got a sales team. Hey guys, we got this goal this year of 10 million. So you put that in the middle, 10 million. How are we gonna do it? I don't know, sell some stuff. I mean, right? And now, so when your team looks at you and they don't have any answers, there's your problem.
That might be. That's an issue.
Remember the thing we had people over
You
here
need to
in
bring some
talent?
stuff to the table.
So I have had a lot of times, and you've seen me do this in a session, where hey, we need some ideas on how to fix this problem, whatever problem it is. Cash flow. Anybody got any ideas? You know, and they look at me, and sometimes, and you see me do this, folks, y'all, we hire. I say we. I mean,
Yeah, you mean
you.
yeah.
I'll point to one of the people. You hired them, and you brought them to the table, and you're calling them the leadership team. And you don't have any ideas how to fix this issue? There's your problem. You got the wrong people in the room. I'm sorry to, hurt anybody's feelings. You know what I'm saying? And at that point, I'm like, I'm about to get fired.
Yeah, right.
Or somebody ought to fire somebody, like either me or them, or somebody needs to really up their game, really seriously up their game.
Once in a while, it's because they're afraid to actually speak out because of the culture. Once in a while.
Well, so, but if their job is to lead,
They need to get over that.
well, speak out.
Right.
Like if you're not interested in speaking out, you probably shouldn't be in a leadership position.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's a talent. It's not, doesn't mean you suck. It just means you're in the wrong seat,
Right.
Leadership it's important, but it's no more important than doing the books or producing goods and service. I mean, it's all important.
Right.
You can't take any of them out of the equation. They're all vital. Now, some of them are a little sexier than others, maybe, but that's overplayed. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, so we create this. We just kind of do this thing. Well, DTO, which is define the opposite. All we're gonna do now is say, hey, cash flow sucks. Well, what would it look like if it didn't? Oh, we'd have a lot of money. Well, write it down.
Right.
Cash flow didn't suck. Oh, we'd have X profit in that one bucket or in that one bank account. We'd have plenty of this. That wouldn't be happening. This would go away. That would be abundant, right? You just start writing down like, ooh, this is what it would look like if we didn't have the problem. Or you might say, we totally flip this around.
Right.
All right. And you can go, cash flow's awesome. And you go, well, that would be day to day to day. This is what awesome would look like. Cool. Well, what does unawesome look like? Oh, we're broke. We're borrowing money, stressed out. Those letters and phone calls coming.
I think that's
from,
where it would work really
Yeah.
well because we can think of negative things a
it's
lot
real
quicker.
easy. Yep. Here's what suck looks like.
Right.
Bam, 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 bam,
We could
bam.
come up with that all day.
Yeah.
Which
And in
is
some
sad,
sense,
but that's
That's
how it is.
that's the basic exercise that I gave this fellow. Is like just write down all of the opposite of awesome.
Yeah.
There you go. Just write it all down. And they go, okay, so where do you think the problem is? You zone in on there and write that down. So anyway, that's DTO. And I gotta say it's as simple as it is. This is not like the superconductor. I mean,
Right.
This is just like, hey, well, what would it look like if it wasn't like that? It's just really simple. So got a lot of value out of that. Clients get a lot of value out of that. I've gotten a lot of value out of that personally in making plans around, vision for my family or my stuff or my business or something. Like, oh, I want this thing to go this way. Oh, well, what would it look like if you screwed it up? Oh, these things. And that helps you go, oh, that's where I need to actually fix that, Oh, okay. And then it'll pop loose something. So one of my little taglines that I share with folks that ought to be my clients, so if they'll say, why should I do this with you? I'm like, well, epiphanies are costly. And I, the right client will be like, wait a second. What do you mean by that? And you'll see them start thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm actually kind of testing them at that point. Because I want to work with folks that are going to try to figure out what's wrong and do something about it. You know what I mean? And otherwise, I can't help them.
Right.
Anyway, it doesn't matter what I tell them. So I'll say epiphanies are costly. And I'll watch to see if the wheels are turning or if they have some reaction. And they'll like, yeah, oh, yeah, that's right. Or what do you mean? Or something. And it generally, it's like, well, when were those times in your life that you were like, oh my gosh? Like, what do you mean? Well, like if you, and I'll use some really bombastic example. Like you say to yourself, I married the wrong person, or I should have quit smoking 10 years ago.
I should have kept putting that money into my retirement account.
Yeah. This retirement thing is great, but I should have started at 30.
That was a real example.
Right. Yeah. So I use this. Well, so let me finish the statement. So epiphanies are costly, but the wise find them at half price. The smarter you are, the cheaper you find them. And basically you're like, look at that guy. I'm not going to make that mistake. Okay, that's a cheap epiphany, right? You learned at his expense. Hey, I'm learning from my mistakes. Great. Well, let's learn from somebody else's.
You can't learn from someone else's mistakes if you're not looking
Yeah.
or reading.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, that's right. And that's what reading is. It's like, hey, guys going, I screwed this up a bunch. I'm going to write it down. Like, oh, cool. So I could take 10 years to learn it badly. Or this guy learned it and wrote it down really well.
And I could spend
do it
6
in 2
hours.
6 hours, whatever. Okay,
Whatever
great.
it takes to read it.
Brilliant. Like, that's a cheap epiphany. Very cheap.
$15, $20 for the
That's
book.
right.
I mean,
And a couple hours or so on and so forth. So so this kind of deal creates some cheap epiphanies where you're like, oh, and that's what we're after. Understanding, clarity, light bulb, right?
Right.
I love that. That's from Despicable Me.
That's awesome.
Gru,
which I finally watched.
yeah, Gru's like light bulb. I just love that. Bing. So that's the whole point, is to get the lights to come on and get folks to go, oh, I should do this differently. Yeah, go do it differently. Come back and let me know how that goes, right?
Right.
So what were you going to say?
The one thing you usually talk about with this too is like once you bust this stuff all open and loose, is having a place to park it.
Yeah. Now what?
What do you do with this?
Yeah. Well, you've got to have a way. And I would say business coaching. I'm going to say business coaching 101. But I know a lot of business coaches. And not a lot of them do this. So I don't understand why. It's like coming across a musician and they play or sing or do something, and you're like you're at a party or something, or camp out or something like that. I mean, I don't know, whatever. And somebody's like, I'm a musician. Oh. And they start playing something, and they're like, no, you got your fingers in the right place, and you know the words, but I think we're going to need to redefine musician here.
Right. It's being used kind of loosely.
Right? It's like, yeah. So I'm saying that with business coach too,
Right.
I suppose. But business coaching 101 is, okay, so we ought to figure out better ways of doing things and then develop a better operating system. So we have an operating system. I'm going to call this operating system 1.0. And this is Einstein going, that way of thinking that got you here into the mess isn't going to get you out. All right. So operating system 1.0, which is here's how we're going to manage and hire and sell and produce and measure if we got the work, did the work, and got paid for the work. Here's how we're going to do that. Well, it's not working very well. It's working okay. that got you to this point. 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, 2 million, 1 million, whatever. But it's not getting you off of that point. All right. So we need operating system 2.0. We need a different operating system. And all we're saying in an operating system is here's how we're going to make decisions. Here's how we're going to, here's who we are. Here's our culture. We're going to write that down and execute against it, hire and fire against it. Hey, here's why we're doing this. Some sort of real purpose, stated, spoken, meaningful purpose, not fake. So a lot of times people go, we're about the children. Like, no, actually, you're about the money. So you should start telling the truth about that. Now, well, if we do, everybody will leave. Well, they're leaving anyway. I mean, they're going, so you got a culture where you're going, yeah, you're lying. And that's our operating system. All right. Or, and you see this all the time in institutions or institutions are corporations, big ones. My wife used to be a nurse at a big hospital. And I went there as I was kind of getting into coaching and stuff. This is years ago, 10 more years ago. And I'm going down the hallway, and she's telling stories about, she'd been there for decades, And she's like, blah, 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 blah. Manager, blah, blah, blah. C-suite folks, CEOs, stuff like that. And I'm going along down the hallway one time to pick her up or take her lunch or do something. And there's posters on the wall with their core values. We this, we that. I'm like, woof, woof. You know what I'm saying? It's like, they don't do any such thing.
So
it's like,
instead of a core value, it's just what, aspirations or something? Like we would like to be that maybe?
So,
but
Enron, one of their core values was integrity. Right? Like, not so much.
No.
Right? So, and like their actual core values were really, 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 really different.
We probably can't say them right now.
That's right. Well, they're paying the penalty for some. Some are paying penalty for some of their actual core values. But that's the point, is operating system 2.0 is, well, let's figure out what our actual, and when you say core, so let me back up. So core values,
Right. Yeah.
and we could talk about this for a week.
Right.
But core values are, just take that word. So I'll have a client in a meeting blow through, like steamroll one of their core values. I don't know. Let's say it's integrity. I don't know. Just to come up with one, which is not a good idea for a core value. Just saying. All right. And there's a lot of great reasons for that. And those of you that are wondering about that ought to read The Advantage by Pat Lencioni.
Great book.
Fabulous. So, in a session, and it's clear that integrity is not one of their core values, that they're, covering up or lying about something, or trying to, PR something to death. One of the things I like to do is say, well, let's get out your dictionaries. All right, and let's look up the word core. Because we forget, like, we just gloss over meanings of words. Core. So we look up the word core. It's what's at the center, coach. Okay. Value. Let's look up the word value. Something we highly esteem or is worth a lot. Or the way to measure its worth. All right. Okay. So we have something we value deeply that's at the core of us. That's not integrity. I'm saying, or you would have handled this differently.
Right.
Like, your core value is look good and sound good. If you're trying to PR something to death, your core value is don't look like an idiot. That's way more important to you. Now, I don't like working with people like that. I don't think anybody else does either,
Right.
unless they're in the Hollywood scene as well. And they're like, well, gimme. Okay, well, sounds awful. I'd rather do something else, right? So anyway, the point is, we got to write down, hey, here's who we are. This operating system 2.0, and execute against it. Hey, this is why we exist. and it's not money. Well, if it is money, write it down, and then you'll unearth some root issues. Which is like, oh, no wonder we're a backstabbing, money grubbing organization. Yeah, because that's what we're all about. You know.
Might want to change that.
Yeah, and now you want to if you want to make it nice and clear, like, hey, we're cover your butt, looking out for number one, me. That's how we are around here. Okay.
At least they're honest about it.
I think I left my oven on. You know, like, I'm gonna go do something else.
Right.
But be honest about it. That will help.
Right.
You know, clarify things. So, but anyway, we'll write down who we are, why we're doing this. Third thing is, what is it we're doing? And that's our strategy, our niche, our strategic niche, like that thing. Hey, we do this one thing. And it's not, make widgets. It's something else. Like we make people. So the iPhone, for example, if you said, hey, Apple, what do? We make iPhones. We're a technology company. And it's like, no, they make people's lives better through technology. I mean, that's probably something that they actually try to do. And that's what got them, mixed with some other things, to the top. Now, will I keep it there? I don't know. But, and another great kind of resource around this is Good to Great. Good to Great by Jim Collins. He does a great job of kind of popping the lid on, hey, why did these guys get awesome and these guys didn't? And some of it's around, these guys had a clear way of talking about their culture. These guys had a clear way of putting purpose up in front of dollars. These guys had a clear way of saying, hey, this is what we do. And hiring and firing and managing around those things. So those are three. This is Operating System 2.0. Fourth one is, where are we going? Like, hey, boss, when I sign up for this job, are we going anywhere? Or are we just going to paddle around in circles all day and call it a day? And bring her, take the ship out into the harbor, and we're going to go around a big circle and then come back in.
Dock it.
Well, that's nice if it's like a party boat and we're going to do that like on the 4th of July or something. Okay. Or go water skiing or something. Okay. But every day, that's my day job? Well, I guess if you're the captain of a party boat, okay. But that's not what we're doing with these businesses. We're trying to go somewhere. So you got to write down, where is it? 25 million. Oh, that's not compelling unless you're the owner. So imagine if you're the owner of a baseball team and you're like, hey, I got a vision. What is it? I'm going to make this baseball team worth $1 billion.
I'm going to put it all in my pocket.
Yeah, and so come be my catcher. And the catcher's like, well, that's not my vision. Right?
Right.
And then it's instantly like, oh, this is watch out for number one, all about the money kind of business? Uh-huh. Well, then I want more to be your catcher. I want more money at this, right? And that's not a vision. That's a contest or something. Okay, and maybe people want that. But that's not like what a healthy organization looks like. We know that.
Right.
Grandma knows that. All right, this is grandma rules.
Right.
And this budget, we're talking about grandma rules. Okay, it's like, hey, y'all, we made some money, but we don't have any of it. Okay, let's figure that out. So, all right, so the fifth thing is, how are we going to get there? So who are we? Why are we doing this? What are we doing? Where are we going? So nice, crisp, little kind of compelling vision. And then how are we going to do that? How are we going to execute on that day in and day out? And that's the question you're really asking then is, so you figure something out here. Well, now what are you going to do about it? How do you turn that into a deliverable? Or how do you get that into here's how we're going to operate differently now? So one of the easy buttons is what we call a rock. And this is, what's his name? I always forget his name. Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
In his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he says, hey, there's something I noticed about effective people. There's all these effective people out there. And he went around, and this is just a real quick summary. He went around and like, look how effective that guy is. Well, he does these things. And he's like, look at that guy. Or this gal. Or this gal. Right? And he goes, oh my gosh. They have these 7 things in common. All right, so it's like, that's a cheap epiphany. Like, oh, well, maybe I should adopt some of those.
Maybe I should read this book that came out. many
I'm
years
no
ago.
genius, but yeah, maybe I should read it. That came out right in 1983 or
It's
whatever.
not a new book.
No,
There's just variations of it.
yeah. And there's a great video on YouTube about it shows him talking about rocks. All right, so
We post that in several places on our.
yeah, you can hunt around and find a link somewhere in our stuff.
Perhaps I'll put a link below
Perhaps there.
on this video.
So he has this woman come up, and he's explaining. I think it's habit number 3. I think in his 7 habits,
Yeah.
which is I'm going to summarize. I'm going to kind of butcher it probably, but habit number 3 is highly effective people figure out what their what is important first of all right, and they go, okay, these 2 or 3 things are really important, and they manage to get them in front of, where they prioritize important over the urgent. All right, and that's you got to kind of think about like important, urgent. You know what I'm saying? So
That's a huge way of thinking, though.
yeah, and it's not. We're so busy. We're just busy, and we're running around busy. Phones and emails and da 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 da.
And the urgent always bubbles right
Yeah.
in front. It's like everything's on
What'd you
fire.
do today?
Yeah.
A lot. I'm tired.
I'm
Well, was
exhausted.
any of it important? It all felt important. Like, well, was it actually important? And it probably wasn't. This is 80-20. This is the Pareto principle. Another great book. Richard Koch. K-O-C-H. Richard Koch. So, little bit of what we do changes everything. Most of what we do is fairly ineffective or totally ineffective. That's 80-20. 20% brings about 80% of the results. 80% brings about 20% of the results. That's a gross kind of like generalization, but there's just a lot of imbalance between what happens and what we did to make that happen. Chaos theory is an example of that. Most of what happens does nothing. A little bit changes everything. It's an imbalance. And so the key is, what are those things that I ought to be doing that change things? And the rest of the stuff, make that come second, or later or whatever. And what's his name? Covey makes a great case for that. And he has this great little video teaching around what he calls rocks. And he just literally takes these rocks, and they're about the size of this eraser thing, and he painted them, right? And he painted some stuff on them. I don't remember what it was, land that big client,
Right. There's
take your vacation, rescue your marriage or something, or don't get divorced, or invest in your marriage, or do a great job raising your kids, or something like that. It was very just oh yeah, I want to do that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and these are big deals. And he takes this lady and he's like, hey, so do you want to get all these things done? Yeah, I do. Well, okay, so the metaphor is this jar. It's like, well, you got to get this jar's your life or your week or your schedule or something, your calendar. The challenge is how to fit all these in there so you get them all done, and or do you want to prioritize these? Yes, I do. All right, well, this other stuff is sand and gravel and water. And this represented urgent stuff and trivial stuff. And I don't remember exactly the metaphor, but he's like, you got to get all this in the jar. And so the jar was half full of that stuff already. And so she's stuffing these rocks in there. And of course, she's got them kind of mashed in there, and
And they're
they
not.
kind of don't fit. They kind of
can't-
fit.
you
You
can
can
get
fit
it.
2 or 3 or 1 or something. But the other ones, and he's like, yeah, you don't want to. He's like, no. She's like, yeah, no, I do. So, and there's this empty jar conspicuously standing there, which everybody's ignoring. And he's like, hey, why don't you put the rocks in the empty jar first? Put them in first. And then dump the other stuff around it. And if you leave some of it out, whatever. Some of the sand and gravel, whatever. So she was able to get it all in, the sand, the gravel, the water, and the rocks. But she started with the big ones. And then all the other stuff fit around them, which is like, oh, it's not rocket science, dude. I mean, it's just like, well, that's a good idea, and they're like, I mean, none of this stuff is brilliant. It's just, it's practical and smart, and you're like, I'm such an idiot. You know what I mean?
Right.
And coaching, by the way, is like, yeah, you're an idiot. Just let's try that a different way. That's really at the end of the day. That's really all it is. And the folks are like, yeah, I think I'll try it that way. But yeah, go ahead and come back and let me know how it went.
Right.
And they're like, thanks, coach. I'm like, okay, no problem. So, I mean, it's a little more than that,
Right.
but not, essentially that's basically how it
I mean,
works.
if you're going to boil it down a couple words.
Yeah. So, that's a rock. So anyway, you get this figured out, and we need to have an operating system where you go, hey, what are the 3 or 4 priorities let's just say this month for the business? And as the folks that own the results of the business, whether you're an owner or a hired gun by the owner who's going like, all right, I'll take it there. And you own some results, whether it's, money or whatever, it's results. All right. So I own results. Cool. That's leadership again. Like, hey, can you do this? Yeah, I will. Okay. And if you don't, well, yeah, you can fire me. Okay. Right. So we'll just check in once in a while. Okay. I mean, that's really simplifying it. Now, that being said, dude, as simple as I just laid that out, nobody does it. All right. So listen, I was on the phone the other day.
Oh, no.
And one of my clients, and I'm gonna generalize, okay, but this is, and to the client, they probably don't think it went this way, okay, just for clarification. But it did. All right, it did actually go this way, which is part of the problem with where clients are at, is they're so traumatized by what's happening day in and day out. And going back to the rock thing, the urgent is eating their lunch mentally. Like they are so caught up in the day-to-day that they are totally missing the big truths of what's happening in the business. Okay, so this person, principal of the business, okay, I'm not going to use gender pronouns because I'm not hateful. Like, I don't know, whatever. No, just because I don't want to be in any way specific.
Right.
All right. So,
And you keep this very general.
yeah. So this person's like, my people are not performing. They're performing at a 60% level. So we're paying them, and they have a way, I mean, they are literally, this particular business is literally, we're going to pay you for an hour, but we're going to charge the client 3 times that. It's essentially
A lot of
it's
companies are set
utilization.
up. Yeah, there's a lot of types of companies set up.
Yeah, and that's the transaction. Like, okay, we'll go out and find all these folks, and we'll pay them. And when we do this here, we'll assume it's going to take so many hours. Contracting is a great example.
Right.
Okay, we're gonna hire Chuck in a truck, and we're gonna pay him $20 an hour. Okay, and we think this job's gonna take 40 hours. I don't have to do the math. Like, okay, that's whatever, $800. I think, yeah, $800. And we got to pay for Chuck's truck. Okay, no, some material. Okay, so we get $800,000. Okay, so we go to the client and say, hey, client, it's going to be $2,000 to do this job. Oh, okay. So we pay $1,000 to Chuck in the truck, and we make $1,000. So we pay our secretary and pay the rent and da-da-da-da, and we hope to have $300 left over. Okay, cool. So it's, whatever that is, 15%, I guess. I'm just doing the math quick in my head, and 15% margin. Okay, great. So the deal is, hey, we got these, and they're working at 60%. They can measure that. And he said a pronoun. she, they, it was like, you know, I'm so upset. Okay. Well, didn't you hire somebody to manage them? And the person's like, yeah. So why are you talking to me? I didn't. It wasn't me, was it? I'm like,
And
now, I hate to be like so dumbass about this here, but it's like
it's kind of your job.
well, yeah. And so,
I mean,
like,
you're,
so you're calling me, but you hired somebody to manage them. Again, going back to lead, manage, and hold accountable.
which we'll go over in
Later.
another episode.
Sure.
Yeah, because you've got a
Okay.
really good thing for that.
So he's like, yeah. Well, are they doing it? And literally that's how the combo went. Like, and I'm like, well, so let me back up.
I'm nervous.
You got some people.
You're making me nervous.
So you got some people in the room that on this leadership team, and they have a job, you know, and you're supposed to lead, manage, and hold them accountable. Why are you calling me? Like, go do it. All right. And so then it's like, so the problem, my friend, is you. I mean, you're complaining about these people, which you should. I mean, there's a problem, right? There's a real problem.
There's something going on there.
But let's just say that's a symptom. All right. That is an obnoxious rash. Okay. Yeah.
You might want to get some cream for that.
Yeah. Okay. So you can get some cream for that, but it may be this other thing. that's
Like
going-
you were like
on.
waiting in the poison ivy yesterday.
Okay. What's poison ivy? See, there we go. So the problem is you don't know, right? You don't know something.
You don't know what you don't know.
The problem's you.
Right.
All right. Now the after results, symptom, whatever, is poison ivy, great. But the cause is something else. So anyway, so rocks are basically you figure out an issue. So at that point, you figure out an issue. Okay, so let's pick on this particular client and go. And well, even this exercise I had another guy doing. All right, so I'm like, hey, buddy, whatever you do in the next 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, go ahead and do that. But do this. And I'm going to ask you about this. I'm not going to ask you, hey, did you get all those emails done? Hey, what time did you show up on Tuesday? Hey, are you answering all your phone calls? Hey, how long does it take you to call people back? Hey, when you measure stuff, are you using a good measuring tape? I'm like, that's your day job. I mean, at some level, as a worker bee, but as a leader, your day job is actually to make sure you're leading people, managing people, holding people accountable, fundamentally. And then if it's like creating a vision, hey, how much time you spent doing that? None. Oh, and nobody knows where we're going, do they? No. And do you have a vision? Yeah. What is it? Give it to me. And they bumble around like, there's your problem. You have a lousy vision or you don't know how to say it. But that's your job as a visionary, you know, is to cast a vision. I mean, I'm no genius. I'm no linguist. But when you go, I'm the visionary, what's your vision? All right. And like, oh, okay. So we got a visionary who can't talk. So
You might want to practice.
let's try sign language. So during COVID, you know, we all have endured, you know, the press. I mean, I know there are people that that need to use sign language to communicate. All of a sudden, during COVID, It's just like, did you notice this? All of a sudden, it's like they like all of a sudden we're doing sign language in all the press conferences.
I think it was because of masks.
Maybe you're right.
It just just dawned on me
Yeah.
this very
So
second.
now, but
because
are they reading lips at all other times, or like they got teleprompt? They got, what do they call it?
Right.
Closed caption.
closed captioning. Yeah.
It's
So
working real good. I mean, it's nice, I guess, but it just all of a sudden came up during COVID. I don't know. Just a little side note.
another side note is to watch those guys, the ladies and gents that
Mm-hmm.
do the sign language. They're very like,
Animated.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's very distracting. Like,
Yeah.
I have no idea what the person that's really talking
Yeah.
is saying
You're
because
watching
I'm like our governor, doing
Right.
all this stuff,
Yeah.
and
right.
the person,
Yeah. Now, but the animation seems like it's always happy. Like, well, this is bad news.
right?
Like, are they going? I think they're not doing frowny face.
Well, sometimes they do.
I haven't seen it, but
Like, who
pretty interesting. So
got distracted again?
yeah. Well, so hopefully you'll join us in reading Team of Rivals. Hopefully you use this brain drain DTO little. There you go. If you're leading, managing, and running and owning and making ripples out there with your organization, you need to be thinking better and deeper. And that's some of the stuff we're trying to poke at this podcast is get folks to ourselves included
Yeah.
to act, think, work better, differently. So there you go. That is our podcast for the day. It's in the can. We'll see you next time.
Oh, you want to go out with a song?
Yeah, let's do it.
From one of you, is this one of your top
Gabriel.
5?
Well, this artist, but not this album. The album would be So.
Yes, but this song.
Yeah.
is-
Now, Yes is one of my top 5 as
Yes,
well.
that's true.
But I love this song.
So I thought this is probably a good way to go out because it's not in 4/4.
Climbing up on Salisbury Hill.
I believe that's
I could
7/4.
see the city light. Wind was
5,
blowing,
6,
time
7,
stood
1.
still.
Yep. Yep. All right, we're done.
Flew out
Okay, see you next time. Low Stone True North checking out.